Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Hey everyone, I'm Mark Scribner. I'm your co-host here with my co-host Mike Akil from his Sarasota office. I'm here in my Boston office. Today we have Jessica Peterson, a really dynamic entrepreneur that is hitting it in all areas as a real estate agent, actually a TEDx speaker. She's a nationally best-selling author, so you're going to want to hear what she has to say about how she's been able to create and run her businesses, and especially during COVID. So I want to remind everyone that you can find our show. It's nationally syndicated on iHeart. You can find the show and all the past shows anywhere you can find your podcasts. It's Google, Stitch, SoundCloud, etc. We are now the #1 entrepreneurial podcast in Boston and in Sarasota. So you want to check out this episode and all our prior episodes whenever you can. With that said, I'd like to introduce Jessica Peterson on our show today. She's residing in Florida at the moment, broadcasting. So how are you today?
I'm doing amazing. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's nice to have you on the show, Jessica. Finally getting a break from this summer heat, huh?
Yes, we are. I love it though. I love it. You just hop on the boat and go have some fun. It's good.
Yeah, not in Boston. Jessica, when I was reading your bio, you had referenced the word wow. You're a highly energetic person, but there was a point in your career where you kind of had a crescendo moment where, you know, looking at this mysterious work-life balance that people talk about, but you had something pretty substantial happen in your life that changed, I think, your perspective. Could you maybe speak a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. So I just moved over here to Florida from Colorado. And shortly thereafter, I'll never forget, I got my first speaking engagement here. I love to provide value, not only nationally, also local. And I was really excited about it. And I'll never forget the next morning, I woke up with my husband's face right over my face. And he says, there's something wrong with my eyes. And I said, no, they're fine. Why? And he goes, I can't see. So he's typically the one that doesn't like to go to the doctor or hospital or anything of that nature. I don't know if anyone else can go ahead and relate to that. So I started calling around eye doctors or saying, this is not something an eye doctor needs to do. And I just got back from an event where someone had a detached retina. So we right away thought it could be a detached retina. So I did go ahead and convince him to go to the emergency room. And the next thing I know, he was in ICU. So you want to talk about when your life changes so quick and so rapidly. It was so surreal. And, you know, ever since that day, my husband hasn't been quite the same. I mean, I'm grateful he's alive and he's doing, you know, better than most, but he had 2 masses of bleeding in the brainstem.
I see. So was it stroke related type of thing?
No, it's not. No, just the blood vessels in his brain are thin and they can burst at any single moment. So after that happened, it really dawned on me, you know, life is so precious. Why is everybody not going after what they desire and living life to the full? And I wrote the book, Create the Perfect Day. The latest version is Create a Wow Life. And I say every day is perfect because we're alive. So let's go after the life that we dream and desire. And it just touches my heart when people write in and tell me. I mean, it was so fascinating. I was at the Ritz the other day for a very private wedding, celebration during COVID. It was very interesting. You know, you're over 12 feet apart tables. And this woman heard that I was author of that book, and she came over, of course, social distance. And she said, that book changed my life. She goes, that is a book that I keep going after. And that's a book that gets me motivated, gets me out of bed. And it's a book I still reflect and go back to as well, because as we go through these times, COVID, non-COVID, our lives are always changing. It's always evolving. And it's always good to dive into those questions. What does the perfect day? What does the wow life look like for us? And when I work with people in real estate, whether locally or connecting them with someone international or national, I always love to dive into what does even that lifestyle at home look like for you?
That's really interesting. Well, you know, as you know, our show is all about inspiring entrepreneurs. So Jessica, if you had to summarize some of the key things that could help some people who are maybe transitioning, you know, from the corporate world that are now coming into maybe starting their own business, what would you do to kind of help them stay focused and really inspire them to accomplish their dreams?
Oh, wow, that's a really big question. So I'll never forget, I was on a mastermind with a bunch of multimillionaires one gentleman sold a company for $1 billion, and they said the number one secret to success is motivation. So really find, where's that motivation? You can't buy it. Nobody can go ahead and give it to you. So really find that. Some people say it's part of their purpose or their why. I have, when I've spoken, some people say, we don't know my purpose. I don't know my why. And it's okay if you don't know that. I always say, look back what you loved to do as a kid, because there's always hints and indications in there about your purpose or your why. So for me, the joke has always been, and you guys may have read about it in one of my bios, is all my dolls had their lives structured. I don't know why, looking back, they're independent women. They had their careers mapped out, and when they worked, and their raises, and they were philanthropists and everything else. So it's a little bit of an indication on your purpose and your calling later on in life to really ignite that. And once you're clear on that, to have a plan. Statistically, and when I go speak, I see it always to be true, 90% or a little bit more of people do not have a plan. And it's like building a house. If you don't have that plan, it's not going to turn out very good. And just like the house, you go on this dreaming phase. What is it going to look like? And then you start designing it, and then you create the plan, and then you hire the right people. So it's really having all these systems in place.
Yeah, and I heard that you've only met one other person in your life that dressed their dolls up to.
I did. I've only met one other who had all that for her dolls. I'm like, you're my twin. You're my twin. I thought that was normal. When I went to other friends' houses to play dolls, I found that was not very normal. So I was either doing that with my dolls, or I was extreme tomboy. I'm very adventurous. And looking back, I can't believe some of the stuff I did. Can't believe I'm alive.
So I made my Evel Knievel carry a briefcase. So maybe you have the second person that there. But you're also, which is really interesting, you're also a lifestyle coach. And just to maybe follow up on Mike's question, which was a great question, you have the ability to speak with a lot of different people. And I know, success leaves lots of clues everywhere, obviously. But when you're working with someone, other than the motivation and the why, what are some of the kind of the obstacles that you hear people coming at that you probably just like scratch your head and say, well, it's so obvious to you, but there's reoccurring themes with people oftentimes, whether it be motivation, health, or whatever. But what are some of the kind of the given or the common things that people come at you and say, or that you're hearing that are reoccurring?
Oh man, some of the most popular ones, people can relate to this, and maybe you can as a listener, is they feel like a hamster on the wheel, coffee in hand, hair on fire, chasing the next tail, and having a squirrel moment. That seems to be a very common challenge amongst people. And my book takes people on that journey of, what is it you want to achieve? What is it you want to desire? What will be the obstacles? Who's going to hold you accountable? And then it goes in the time blocking. I have a planner as well that goes with the book. To really, dive into it, because time's so precious. And I speak about it in the book. If you just take 1 hour a day times 365 days out of the year, that's 365 hours. Divide that by a traditional 40-hour work week, you get 9 weeks, a little over 9 weeks. So if you could just save an hour a day in your business, you are essentially gifting yourself 9 weeks of time off every year. So when you really start looking at your time that way, and start transitioning it. And a lot of people I worked with over the years is their social media plans. I've trained other social media companies. I've gone into universities, and I've taught them, the social media. And that's where I found the biggest probably unknown or not clarity or time suck for people. And I don't know if you guys can relate, but you go into social media and what you think is 10 minutes ends up being hours later, right? It's that time warp. The average person before COVID, I don't know after COVID, was over 2 hours a day on social media. So imagine how much time you can save by creating that plan and structure and systems.
Yeah, that's amazing. It is amazing to see how social media has become such an integral part of pretty much any business these days. Let me ask you this question, because one of the trends that Mark and I see with anyone who's been successful is that they were, it was 100%, maybe 110%. It was like a child. They were constantly involved in their business, from the picking out the packaging to, how, the fine details of everything before it got to the level where, it was really, really successful. Now, for the entrepreneurs that are listening, how important is it for them to do something that they just are passionate about, that they love? Or maybe they've got an education in a certain field because of the corporate route that they were going. can they follow up on that from a consulting standpoint, or should they do what they are passionate about? I mean, that's kind of one of the things I think a lot of people think about these days.
Or maybe just to even also, or do you have to be all in, or is that work-life balance, like, does that even exist?
Well, nothing's perfect. We all strive for it. And as I said, every day is perfect in the sense because we're alive. And I do believe in that balance. And there was a doctor that once shared with me, I wrote about it in my book, how life is like driving a car. And if you get a flat tire, you're not going to get very far. So it doesn't mean we're equally trading time in each of those tires. There are four key areas of our life, though. We want to really make sure that we are filled up in health. We are filled up in the relationships. We are filled up in the wealth. And we're also filled up in the social impact faith.
That's really cool. So how do you personally get yourself, like, when you feel like you're off track? Because you're pulled in a lot of directions as being a mom, a wife, a business owner, et cetera. But like, what are some of the tools and techniques that you would suggest to our listeners? Like, how do they get that ship righted back once, things go? Because life happens, right? Things come at you. We think we can come into our day predicting all the things, and we're driving the car, if you will, in our business day, but it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes you're reacting.
Yep, you'll get a flat tire, right? So in real day life, so if you get a flat tire, you got to go ahead and fix it. And in my book, Create a Wow Life, it does go in a little bit more detail in that. I really like what Dan Rashawn out there said once is, emergencies do come up and you may need to exchange, some time around, but just realize, kind of like money, you're borrowing, you've got to pay it back, right? So if you take away this time for your health, you got to find a way to exchange it later on and pay it back. I hope that answers your question a little bit more.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, it's a good thing in buckets. And do you apply that when you're being pulled, like, somebody's pulling a project at you? Do you do an immediate task? Like, does that fit into those four buckets? The health, the wellness, the family, the business. Like, do you apply that as a opportunities coming at you, or a project? Do you try to figure out where that's going to fit?
Yes, I always say to look at everything. There's always opportunities anywhere you look. And the number one question is, does this draw me closer or further away from what I want to achieve?
And coming into COVID right now, I mean, how did some of your clients or people, how would you grade their ability to navigate through this difficult time right now with COVID business planning?
I would say pretty good. I mean, obviously people have had to do some major adjustments depending on which career or lifestyle, things of that nature. Overall, pretty good. It's just always about adjusting. And just because you have a plan, it doesn't mean you don't have to change or alter it or anything. Going back to real estate, because I do real estate, you purchase a house, you still have to maintain it. You may have to do upgrades. You may want to do changes or redesign, right? So it's always a continuous journey throughout the process. And looking at the positive in it. And I'll admit, for about 2 days there, I did get a little bit of panic, and usually I don't when all happened. And then I stepped back and started thinking, what is the good from this? What is the positive from this? And I have seen some good and positive. Of course, I would never want COVID to come back or wish it upon anyone ever again. I have seen some good from it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. What's been the biggest challenge that you've been faced with, Jessica, through this whole COVID process? I mean, what's been the hardest part for you, your business?
For my business, well, I did go ahead. I always say I'm never getting another certification. I have too many. And I did go ahead and get one, We Live Clean, because, I really want to make sure it's the highest integrity when I work with my customers. I'm the only one as of now in this whole area who holds that certification. So really making sure how to keep everyone as safe as possible. That was a big one. And it's just unique and a little bit different now with COVID, how we look at houses and really determining, entering and things of that nature. And of course I wear a mask at all times. It's hard though, because I love shaking hands. I love hugging people. I'm a heart hugger. And, actually, here's something so many people have said, what is the proper way to greet now? We don't know. Is it elbow bump or, what is it? So, so what I'm just doing, and I know they do this in other cultures, I just put my hands together and it's kind of like that bowing, right? And just that formal greet.
Yeah, I want to go back to something you said that I agree 100% with. And, when you're in business, you use the analogy of writing plans down. And I always tell some of my entrepreneurs and my clients that just like you're going to build a house, you have to have a blueprint and the details there. You just don't go with a pile of wood and hope that you're going to get a good product. It takes a good blueprint. And then if you're going to build the addition and stuff, maybe not, like that could be ad lib. But how important, based on the people that you work with, is actually having a detailed plan? And like, how much detail is it? Like a 1, a 3, a 5 year, or like how far out and how much detail do you advocate that people get into?
It all depends on the business. And I'll never forget one of my friends, he was looking for investors for his business. And he was advised, you have to have a minimum of 100 pages before I even put money in. And what he absolutely loved about those 100 pages is it revealed and opened up ways that he was, having flaws in his business. Now, am I going to encourage every single person out there to do that? No. I have had companies who came to me very strong, solid history background. And they said, we're ready to finally go after our dreams. We've been struggling over 10 years. And at the end, they were able to achieve it. So I am a big fan of business plans, and they may need some altering or changing, whether you're brand new in business or you're established in business.
And then what about mentoring? A lot of times our entrepreneurs, they compare themselves to people. I think everybody kind of does that to a certain degree, but how important is mentoring in your opinion?
Oh, huge. That's so fascinating you bring it up. I did a post the other day on my personal Facebook saying I'm so grateful for my coaches, my accountability partners, my mentors. All of them are so vital and so important. And I've hired people throughout the years. And one of my biggest ahas, I would have to say, is I used to bring people into my business or life that I liked. And then I realized, wait a second, they don't really have the life that I want. So instead of it just being based on people, you look at people who have the lifestyle or a business life that you desire and you want.
Or even more successful than you too. I mean, it's important to sometimes have some inspiration or people that can challenge you. If you find people that just agree with you all the time or they're carbon copies of yourself, that's not always beneficial as well. Go ahead, Mike. I know you had something.
No, I was interested. I'm just listening to you guys, and that makes a lot of sense. I would
A private coaching call for you, Mike, if you want.
I got a little intimidated by the 100 pages business plan because I don't want to overwhelm our listeners. Does someone to really be successful? I mean, do they have to have everything mapped out? Because sometimes it's just through sheer learning and getting your hands dirty that something evolves into something really great. So what are your thoughts on that? I mean, do you have to have everything mapped out, or can you let the situation be the guide to some extent when you're starting your business?
I believe always having a plan, right? You're going to come across different circumstances and come across different situations where you may have to alter it. I wouldn't say just get in there and get your hands dirty though, because again, going back to illustration of building a house, if I just went out there and started building right now, I would make a lot more mistakes and cost me a lot more money. At the end, yeah, I maybe could have a house, take forever, cost me money, right? So when you think of that 100-page, sometimes we don't realize certain areas that could be a part of the plan. For example, your website, what does each page look like? Your terms and conditions, your shipping, your processing. Sometimes we forget that that is part of our plan. We just may not have it formally down.
That's good. That's good feedback.
Yeah, I'd follow up on that. To me personally, I mean, I've been a big fan of that. I mean, I'll have people look at my plan and not all aspects of it, but I'd like people to poke holes in the strategy to find, what am I missing? Where there's some gaps in this execution? And it doesn't have to be all the personal stuff, because in my business plan, I have personal goals and things like that. But and I do that in our investment work too. When we construct something, I'll have other people look at it and find the flaws for me, because I'm not going to take it personal if there's value added there. that's an add-on for me. No, being that, and I don't want to miss any of these categories, and being sensitive to this, but you're unbelievable real estate agent, you're a life coach, you're a best-selling author, you're a TEDx speaker. Um, how do, I mean, I think I know how all these things flow together, but where's the, how do you, how do you kind of figure out like these pieces that you're putting together for these various businesses? And are they all just, is there a strategy behind it, or is it just different parts of you that have different inspiration?
That's a great question. So I do believe in hiring the right people, the right team. A lot of people have said that they remind me of Shark Tank, the entrepreneurs on there. They may own different companies. It doesn't mean that they do every single aspect of it. So mine all kind of ties together when you look at most of it. So I have real estate in my team. And then I also have my luxury international magazine that's utilized by other ones in the financial industry too. And then I have my online show, which is all about inspiration, creating that wow life, which is also part of the real estate aspect of it. And then I also do work with very limited people for short times, more in the financial, mortgage, real estate industry, to coach and consult them to turn their business around. So you really look at the whole thing. There's a lot of tie-ins. It's rare that I have come in to work with other businesses not tied into that, and it really has to align with my values. Is this a project that's going to wow people? There's a project I can't mention or talk about it, obviously, but it's making a big difference behind the scenes. I would love to be behind the scenes. So people are always reaching out to me. How do you get all these speaking engagements and all? And I said, hey, at the beginning of this, I had to go to therapy for it. I actually went to therapy. I'm like, I don't know how to, handle all this. I would rather, when I was homecoming princess in high school, I resigned. I'm all about equality. I would rather be, to me, it's not about the fame and being in front of everything. It's just whatever it takes to get it done and to make a difference. And I am behind the scenes creating a community of WOW Power Players where people are going to take a pledge to wow one person a day. And it excites me for that ripple effect.
So give me an example about that. I did read about that's one of your motivation. I personally, and I know this show's about you, but I feel the connection. We have some commonality in a lot of times, but I try to practice one random act of kindness a day is one of my goals. But tell us about the wow thing that you talk about and doing that once a day. What does that mean, being wow?
Well, I love that you're part of that one act of kindness. Actually today I have on a shirt, it says Kindness Crusaders. I'm part of a private community about that. What? I have a confession flash in my head, Mark, when you said we have a lot in common. I right away thought, oh, did Mark have dolls too? And they were all careers mapped out.
It was the Evil Knievel doll. I used to cut my sister's hair on her dolls, but that's a,
that's a whole other conversation.
That's a whole other problem. Yeah.
Oh man. I have a really funny story about that. We'll come back to in just a minute.
I should have been a hairdresser instead of finance, but
no. So as far as, that's a really common question, and I write about it in the book. When you wow one person a day, it's not, some people said, does that mean you take people on a yacht? No, it's just really genuinely taking an interest in people. How can I support you? What's a good connection for you? And my goal is every single day to hear at least one wow. And sometimes it could just be the little things. You may not physically hear the wow. You can sense it, you can feel it. I'll never forget when I'll never say their name again, a celebrity from TV said that somebody once smiled and it changed and transformed their life. You just never know. I had someone share with me that I reached out to him at the right time on social media and literally saved their life. You just don't know what people are going through. And I love that you do those random acts of kindness. It can be the little things. I just sent out, a coffee mug where I took pictures from, someone's Facebook, and I put it on there and I mailed it to them. Everybody tells me it wows them and it's their favorite coffee mug. They drink it every morning and they think of me, right? So there's so many different tools, and I speak a little bit about it in the book. And when I do work with companies, and I don't believe in companies being dependent on me forever. Right now I have someone, I said, you only need me for 30 days. That's it. In and out, you'll be fixed and done. And it's just really diving in and seeing ways that you can increase that, the wow experience for people. Because ultimately when you wow people, it's going to increase word of mouth marketing, business. That's why I base my business upon.
Yeah, and it has to be sincere. It can't be a manipulative type of thing. It's got to come from the heart, and people will figure that out quickly if it's not from the heart.
Yep,
Good.
absolutely.
Good, Mike. I know you had something coming up.
No, I think that's good feedback. So what would you say, what someone could do today if they're on the fence, whether they should start their own business? What would you say the best tip you could give them?
Well, if they're debating about it, I would ask, why not?
Why not?
I mean, why not?
Absolutely.
I mean, when I go speak, I always say, why not you? I had a woman write in and said years later that impacted her life, and thank you. I mean, why not you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, Jessica, tell us how tell us about the book, where our listeners can go for the book, and tell us about the podcast that you're doing.
Okay, well, fabulous. So anybody can go ahead and connect with me, LinkedIn or Facebook. You can type in Jessica Peterson, simply wow, WOW, and you can find me. You can go to simplywowagency.com as well. On YouTube, I just launched Create a Wow Life as well. And then my book, Create a Wow Life, which is on Amazon. You can go ahead and purchase it there as well.
Yeah. Can you do the book thing one more time just because you got garbled up?
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's Create a Wow Life on Amazon.
Great. Well, we want to both thank you for taking your time to talk about your business philosophy, your experience, your positivity, which is clearly evident even on a short period of time we were able to speak with you today. Thanks again for, we'll be looking for some updates at some point down the road too. And thanks again for your time. We appreciate it.
Great having you on the show,
Thank
Jessica.
you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate all you guys do. Have a wow day.
You too. Take care.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.